Hey family, it is good to be with you again.
Yes.
Isaiah did an awesome job this Sunday. We're going on 2 weeks.
The best.
Liza killed it. Isaiah did a great job talking about fear. And so we just wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about partnering with fear, talking about you and how you are in control of what you meditate on, but you aren't responsible for what flashes in front of your brain.
Right, and there is a big difference between thoughts and reactions versus what you're partnering with, what you believe, what becomes part of your identity and your worldview, right? And so when we're talking about breaking off fear or getting past fear or how fear holds you back, we're talking about a partnership with fear,
Yes.
which is different than being afraid. So being afraid is in a moment, in a situation, I'm afraid. I get the fight or flight. I back out of something because I'm really uncomfortable, right? Like I was afraid.
Yeah.
That's different than a partnership with fear. And that partnership involves an agreement. It involves trusting fear to protect you in some way from something that it's not meant to.
That's so good. You know what they call people who aren't afraid ever? Psychopaths.
Right.
So like if you felt fear before, there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, that is exactly the way that you are supposed to be.
Right.
And the joy in fear is realizing that when we trust in God, we're watching Him do something that we couldn't do without.
Yes.
We get to see Him show up and do something in our hearts, in our lives, in our minds that we can't do without Him. Like we're stuck. This is it. This is the best I got. And hopefully it works out.
Yeah. And the reality is, like, we're not advocating that anyone sit down and try to figure out where have I partnered with fear? What's every area of my life that I've made a mistake and I'm trusting the wrong thing, right? Like, it's not up to you to be the surgeon, the healer, the wisdom of how to go about it, right? We encourage you always in relationship to be asking God. We want to talk about it just because there might be something you never thought of, right?
Yep.
And then you can ask God, like, hey, is there fear I have to deal with? And it's like, oh, I never knew fear of rejection was even a thing, and yet here it is affecting the way all my interactions with people go, right? And so something like that is just an opportunity for more freedom.
That's right.
It's an opportunity to invite them in.
I think sozos are really powerful tools, and they're really helpful. But there is a danger in sozos, is that in that they can create this idea inside of you that it is your job in your everyday life all the time to be constantly looking for doors that you've opened, or
Evaluating,
lies that you
analyzing,
believed, or all these different things so that you can be free. And the truth is that would be a very limiting, exhausting experience. And the life that God has called us to is one of relationship.
Right.
Which means that the answer for me is not to be constantly looking for lies. The answer for me is to be constantly looking for Jesus. And He's gonna show you if there are lies or things that you need to do.
Right.
And the power in a sozo is not to find lies, it's to figure out what's inhibiting you from being able to find Jesus.
Yep. And so look for Jesus, right? Invite Him into things that you haven't before. Turn to Him in situations where you're used to relying on yourself or past ways of doing things, right? Like, just open up your understanding of who God is to actually include everything, not just the things that you're used to Him being in, but invite Him everywhere. And you'll see that He's going to be inviting you to break off partnerships with fear and break off lies and break off these things, and that you will experience more freedom because of who you're with, not what you're trying to do.